Warning: this video may contain spoilers for the following games.
Scramble like rats fleeing a sinking ship. But there's nowhere else to go. There's no future living like this. If we're to survive, we need to find another way. A way to overcome the BTs, the Death Stranding, the whole damn mess.
Hey, and welcome to my video. This is my very first big video I'm making, and I hope you'll enjoy following my journey. So here it is, the story of my 30-day platinum challenge. The reason I'm making this video is because of multiple other YouTubers. One of these YouTubers is Daryl Talks Games. In one of his videos, called A Misguided Guide to Finishing Your Gaming Backlog, he delves into what every gamer might feel like when they're having a gigantic backlog of games. But in his video, he also talks about how planning out which games you're gonna play can be a big help in cleaning up the backlog. In correlation to his video, I've also watched other YouTubers who made videos about 30-day platinum challenges, and I really enjoyed hearing them talk through their journey. Although one thing stood out to me: since they had to get 30 platinums in 30 days, it resulted in them sometimes having to play smaller games, which didn't require as much time to get platinum. So, for this video, I'm doing an experiment to figure out how many platinums a person can get for bigger AAA titles in a 30-day time period. And also, for this video, I will be giving you guys my personal reviews of the games I play, while also talking about the experience of getting the platinum. At the end of every game, I'll give it a score out of 10, both in game review and platinum review. This challenge started the 2nd of December and will run for 30 days. I am making some exceptions though, since this period hits Christmas time, and seeing as how I'm gonna be celebrating Christmas and Christmas dinners, New Year's and other stuff, I'll take those days out of the equation and add them to the end goal. This will result in the challenge ending the 7th of January. Enjoy the video. And to start off this challenge, I've chosen a game that I've been looking forward to since the very first teaser trailer. Where to begin with this? I'm feeling kind of mixed about the game. If I had bought this game solely for the purpose of playing through it and then never touching it again, it wouldn't justify the $60 price tag. The game is fairly short. I had played through the game on the hardest difficulty, since it was a requirement for one of the trophies. But had I played through the game on medium difficulty without getting all collectibles, the game probably would have lasted around 6 to 8 hours. The game does have some horror elements, but it isn't really scary like I thought it would be. Instead, it kind of felt like a long corridor shooter with some disgusting enemies, but that's about it. The story, in my opinion, also fell kind of flat. There's only about 5 or 6 main characters in the game, so the story isn't what kept me going. Instead, it was the combat. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about it in a bad way, but I actually enjoyed it a lot. It could get repetitive at times, but the feeling of dodging 3 to 5 attacks from an enemy, weaving left and right, felt really good. Granted, this type of combat isn't really in check with the genre of survival horror, and that could certainly disappoint a lot of fans. Now, when you get to around chapter 6, a little over halfway through the game, you're introduced to a new enemy type, which requires a lot of stealthing, kind of like the clickers from The Last of Us. The problem for me was that they really overuse stealth combat, so much so that you're gonna be playing stealth for around 1 hour of the game time. And this isn't one of the instances where you can choose between going stealth or going guns blazing. Because if you do choose to go John Wick on these enemies, you're gonna be swarmed in less than 5 seconds. And I don't mind games that have optional stealth gameplay, but forcing the player to go stealth for hours on end with a really basic stealth system, sneak behind an enemy, stab them in the back, that just isn't the right way to do it. The last thing I have to say about this game is the endless times you have to shimmy through a small gap, vents, a ledge, etc. Of course, games like God of War also have a lot of shimmy sections, but they don't feel overly obnoxious. But the Callisto Protocol has a shimmy section around every 5 minutes. And by the time I was around halfway through the game, I was really tired of it. One of the biggest things the Callisto Protocol has going for it is the visuals. God damn, this game is beautiful to look at. The designs on enemies and the facial expressions are definitely some of the most realistic I have seen in any game whatsoever. I was constantly amazed at how pleasing the environment was to look at, and I even felt compelled to explore more of the areas, although there isn't a lot to explore, just to see how well they designed everything. But how was the game when going for Platinum? Now, to be honest, the Platinum journey isn't really that bad. The game has some combat related trophies, of which most unlock just by playing through the game. Some of them you have to go out of your way to get. Otherwise, the game only had story related trophies, one collectible trophy and a difficulty specific trophy. And this was by far the worst of them all. Playing through the game on the hardest difficulty was a fucking drag. The game can be truly unforgiving with the checkpoint system and the RNG of getting the right ammo or not. And I get that it's a survival horror game and you're meant to prioritize your ammo, inventory space, etc. But fighting a boss battle over and over again just to get that perfect run with the right ammo drops just isn't a fun experience. There were more than once during my playthrough where I got stuck in the same section for 30 to 45 minutes. And don't get me wrong, I like challenges, but not when it's treating me unfairly. Overall, I would not recommend this game, unless you're a giant Dead Space fan and have been waiting to scratch that sci-fi horror itch. I still had a fun time during most of the game, but the sections where I honestly hated every second of it drags this game down. I want to give this game a 4 or 5 out of 10, and the Platinum trophy is fairly easy to obtain, with only the difficulty trophy making it a hard time. So for Platinum difficulty, I'll give this a 4 out of 10. As for my second game, it's one I hold very dearly as one of my favorite games of all time. I don't really have a review per se for this game, like I had for the Callisto Protocol. Everybody knows the story, everybody knows how highly this game is regarded, so you guys don't need me to say the exact same things you've heard a million times over. Instead, I'll keep it to telling you guys about my experience with the remake. So, The Last of Us Part 1, a remake of a remaster of an original PS3 game. I would lie if I said this remake wasn't worth the $70, but that's how it is for me personally. I can't say that everyone feels the same way. I haven't played The Last of Us since when I first got the remaster on my PS4, but playing through the game again with the updated visuals and gameplay changes, it made me feel the way I did when I played the original for the first time. Watching the facial animations having the same quality as The Last of Us Part 2 really uplifts the story, as if the story by itself wasn't good enough already. Playing through the game again was a blast, I was captivated by the story once again, since I couldn't really remember the small details throughout the game. I even caught myself multiple times asking the question, was this in the original game? And to me, that just proves they did the right thing with this remake. Even if asking for $70 is a lot, if you're a fan of The Last of Us, or want to experience the game for the first time, this is the version you'll want to get. Getting the Platinum Trophy was fairly straightforward. The game only requires you to play through both the main game and the Left Behind DLC, while also getting all collectibles. The game has some minor miscellaneous trophies for doing certain stuff at specific parts of the game. So, overall, it's really easy to get the Platinum, compared to the remaster for PS4, which also required you to play the online section of the game. I had originally planned to finish up my remaining trophies in the remaster, but couldn't muster the strength to play the online mode. So, instead I decided to go with the remake. Going through the game, I had a collectible guide on my second monitor, so I could skip a second playthrough. But this ended up almost being a reality anyways. And trust me, there are a lot of collectibles in the remake. This is because, besides notes and artifacts, they also added in shift doors, workbenches, and saves as a collectible. In total, there are 254 collectibles scattered across the main game and the Left Behind DLC. Some of the collectibles include optional conversations, which require you to stand still at certain spots for multiple minutes. By the time I had finished everything, I was still missing some optional conversations, even though I had already picked them up. This ended up being because I had moved too fast from the conversations, which resulted in the game not picking it up. Overall, it took me around 27 hours to complete the main game and DLC, plus 3 hours for post-game cleanup. This remake is a solid 10 out of 10 in my opinion. The updated visuals and gameplay changes is what keeps the game at a 10 out of 10. They really make it feel like an entirely new game, and I can only recommend it if you're eager for more The Last of Us content. The Platinum difficulty sits at a nice 2 out of 10. Since I got the Platinum for The Last of Us Part 1, it only made sense that I got it for Part 2 as well. Now this game. I would dare say it is one of the most controversial game releases of all time. From the outrage of the leaks leading up to the game's release, all the way to people sending death threats to the voice actor of Abby, just because the story didn't align with their interests. Back when Part 2 was originally released, I was a part of the fanbase who hated the story. I mean, how can they kill off the main character within the first hour of the game? I was furious, and honestly didn't even want to play anymore at that point. This is also why I had some of the trophies unlocked for the game already. But this time, I had just finished Part 1 and started Part 2 right away. This made me look at the storyline in an entirely different way. Having just played as Joel while he massacred hundreds of people, I feel like the revenge of Abby makes a lot more sense. Throughout Part 1, Joel is mostly protecting himself and Ellie while they journey halfway across the country. Although there is one time where Joel is the one to fire the first shot, and that scenario is at the St. Mary's Hospital, where he killed loads and loads of Firefly soldiers just to keep Ellie from being used as a cure for the fungus. One of these Fireflies being Abby's father, as he was the head surgeon who was supposed to extract the immunity from Ellie. Now, watching Joel die at the very beginning of the game still sucks. There's no way around it. But it does paint a picture that our favorite characters aren't safe in this world. There are consequences for the actions that they partake in, and this does give some authenticity to the experience as a whole. Although a lot of people don't agree with the direction the story went, I have come to appreciate it. Naughty Dog took a risk, and for me personally, it worked. The story in The Last of Us Part 2 shows us the cycle of violence and revenge. Joel killed Abby's father, which resulted in her coming back for revenge on Joel. And Ellie watching Joel die at the hands of Abby triggers her to go seeking revenge at any cost. This results in all of the people from Abby's group getting killed in different scenarios. And when Abby finally catches up to Ellie, Jesse, Dina, and Tommy, she ends up killing Jesse. When talking to Ellie, she chooses to let them live once again because she sees how Liv reacts to the way Abby treats Dina, and how she almost kills her, although she's pregnant. When Ellie figures out where Abby went years later, she heads out to finish the job, since she keeps seeing flashbacks of Joel's death. But when she finally is at the face-off with Abby, having beat her and is in the process of drowning her, she gets a flashback to a conversation she had with Joel the night before he was killed. Here, Ellie talks with Joel about the fact that he basically took the only thing away from her that gave her life meaning. She also adds that she might never be able to forgive him for what he's done, but she wants to try. Now this is important. When Ellie remembers this, I think it's the same reason she chooses to let Abby go. She might never be able to forgive her for taking the life of Joel, but at least she wants to try, if only to stop this cycle of violence. I think the story just had to age like fine wine. Having taken a break from the game and finally coming back to it again, I actually had a hard time putting it down. I wanted to experience Abby's journey and see stuff from her perspective. Deep down, her life ended up being almost the same as Ellie's. The journey to Platinum wasn't all that bad. It was a lot like getting the Platinum in part 1. Complete the game on any difficulty while also getting all collectibles. The only thing that really drags it down is the fact that you need to play through the game another time just to get the final weapon and player upgrades. This really sucked, especially since you can't gather resources for Abby while playing as Ellie. So I had to play all the way up to Abby's sections once again just to get the last 5 or 6 upgrades. Overall, this game definitely deserves a 9 out of 10 in my humble opinion. The game keeps a lot of the stuff that worked well in part 1, while adding some new elements such as new combat animations, more explorable semi-open worlds, and better acting in general. Although I still feel like there were a few points in the story which had some issues with pacing. The Platinum wasn't really hard to get, but it was a painstakingly long journey considering the forced second playthrough. I'll give this game a 4 out of 10 in Platinum difficulty. Now the next game on my list is a drastic change from the 2 Last of Us games. I'll be honest right off the bat. I had no idea this game was in the works, much less it being released so close to me discovering it. I first saw the trailer for this game around mid-November, and having played both the Final Fantasy VII Remake and the original Final Fantasy VII, I was hyped. The more action-focused gameplay Square Enix has used since the remake has been amazing in my opinion. I don't mind the old school JRPG gameplay, but I really feel like this action-orientated gameplay is more aligned with modern gaming and can help bring in more people. The story in this game can sometimes be really intriguing and other times really dull. At one point, you're learning about the experiments Professor Hollander has made on both Genesis and Angel. And at another point, you're chasing a boy around the Sector 5 Sums Market just to get back your wallet. So, the pacing would sometimes feel a little bit off. But overall, I enjoyed my journey through Zack's storyline, if only to get more connected to him as a character. The gameplay is almost identical to the remake, although there is one change which I truly hate. Every time you get into a combat scenario, you hear this woman go,
"Activating combat mode."
And when combat is over, she says,
"Combat resolved."
Hearing these 2 voice lines, which must have been nearly 1,000 times, I was at the brink of insanity. If they should have improved one thing in the game, it should have been this. Now, the graphics are beautiful. Not at the same level the remake is, but it's very close. Considering this is still the original PSP game, with the newly added models, it's outstanding. I'm sad that I didn't get to experience the original game, since I can't really tell if Square made changes to the game other than graphics. Going for Platinum in this game took a lot of time. or at least it felt that way. While my in-game timer might only show me having played around 30 hours, it honestly felt like I had played the game for 300. The reason behind this is because you need to complete all side missions in the game, of which there are 300. These missions mostly consist of smaller free roam maps, where you have a single enemy objective you need to kill to complete the mission. And let me tell you, running through mission after mission, hearing the voiceover lady saying the same 2 voice lines, repeating the same combat moves, etc., I was done. I'm really glad the last thing I needed was these missions, because after finishing the very last mission, I was so drained. If I had to go and get another trophy, I would have to really pull myself up. In conclusion, this game was a pleasant journey, at least until the point where I had to grind missions for hours on end. Although the story had its pacing issues, it was great getting to know Zack as a character and watching his impact on the people surrounding him. Other than that, the only thing dragging the game down is some very weird difficulty spikes and the damn combat engages. I'll give the game a solid 7 out of 10. The platinum difficulty deserves a 4 out of 10 only because of the painstakingly long grind you'll have to go through with side missions. And speaking of grind, wow. Just wow. This game is truly a spectacle of its own. Let me start off by talking about the game itself. I haven't played any of Kojima's other games, except for a tiny bit of Metal Gear Solid 5, which was a train wreck because of all the stuff with Konami. Going into Death Stranding, I'd heard a lot of good stuff about the game. Although, I'd also heard about the boring gameplay, as many described it. But I was still determined to shape my own opinion about the game. And for me, it was a blast. From the get-go, I was hooked on the mystery surrounding the story in this game. From the very first cutscene in which Sam witnesses a void out, I was intrigued. And it didn't take long after that before I was playing the game from morning till nighttime every day. This one specific journey through the landscape around 2 hours into the game was what really immersed me in the world. The overarching story of the game is to reconnect America by connecting different cities using a Cupid. This requires you to make a lot of deliveries scattered across 3 different regions, namely Eastern, Central and Western region. All the while you're connecting the remaining residents of America, you also get an insight into all of your friends' stories. This is the motivating factor throughout the entire game. Along the way, Sam meets a lot of people, and slowly you come to realize that everyone has something in common. Kojima has masterfully written several characters, all of which are equally interesting. As the game progresses, you also learn about how everything is connected. How BBs work, what a beach is, how BTs came to exist, etc. The game rewards you for pushing through the UPS simulator, in more ways than one. A little over halfway through the game, once you're done connecting all the cities, the game takes a turn and instead focuses a lot more on the story of the game. In this state, the game also gets a lot more combat focused, which was truly refreshing after having delivered parcels for about 15 to 20 hours. But I swear to you, if you haven't played Death Stranding because the gameplay scared you off, then don't let it hold you back. The game is a masterpiece with a well-written story and world. The Platinum Journey, on the other hand, was a truly excruciating experience. To get the Platinum in Death Stranding, you're required to level up all facilities to 5 stars, while also getting the rank Legend of Legends in 4 different categories 20 times. This part of the Platinum was clearly the most time consuming. Even with a well-built network of ziplines, this still took me upwards of 60 to 70 hours. After this, you have to collect all the memory chips which are scattered across the aforementioned 3 regions. Once you're done with that, you will have to fabricate every single item in the game, and also build every structure in the game, while also upgrading them to level 3. This requires a lot of resources, and even after getting all facilities to 5 stars, I still had to go to 3 different facilities to get the required materials. The game also has a lot of miscellaneous trophies, but most of these is completed while playing through the story or getting all facilities maxed out. The single most annoying thing about all this is the trophy rankings. In Death Stranding, there's 58 bronze trophies, 3 silver trophies, 1 gold trophy, and of course 1 platinum trophy. Even connecting and maxing out all facilities, which are the most time-consuming tasks, are only silver trophies. Silver trophies! The 1 gold trophy is earned by getting the Legend of Legends rank in the different categories. This was truly disappointing, but I made it through. I got the platinum. And now we know that Kojima is making a sequel to Death Stranding, so my prayer is that Death Stranding 2 will have better trophy rankings. Death Stranding, in and of itself, definitely deserves an 8 out of 10. The only thing dragging it down is the delivery gameplay getting repetitive pretty fast, while also having some pacing issues in my opinion. But the game is still a must play. There's just certain points in the game where you'll need to really power through some downtime. As you can probably guess from my comments about the Platinum journey, this game deserves a 5 or 6 out of 10 in Platinum difficulty. If only for the long grind of maxing out all facilities. To finish off this challenge, I wanted to complete a game which got a sequel coming out very soon. It was about time I played through this game. I'm a sucker for Soulsborne games, but I never got around to playing this to the end. I tried starting it on PC when it was released, but never got past the second planet. And what a mistake that was. I really enjoyed my time with this game. It was so nice to finally get a switch up in gameplay and have it be a bit more fast paced compared to Death Stranding. The game is a fairly short journey, but if you're a Star Wars fan or Soulsborne fan, you're gonna love this game. The story is fairly straightforward, with some minor plot twists. What really lifts this game up is the combat and the possibilities of so many combinations of force abilities and melee combos. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order places you in the shoes of Cal Kestis, a Padawan who survived the Order 66 purge. He's been living out his days on a scrap planet called Bracca. Eventually, he's found by an Inquisitor of the Empire called the Second Sister. This results in Cal having to escape Bracca, which he succeeds in doing so with the help of 2 friendly Samaritans called Cere and Grease, who's aboard a ship called the Mantis. Here, Cal gets the mission of going to Bogano and finding an old Zephyr vault, uncovering its secrets. On his way to the vault, he meets a droid named BD-1. When they enter the vault, they are greeted by a hologram stored in BD-1, left behind by an old Jedi called Eno Cordova. In this transmission, Cal learns of an object called a holocron, which has a list of force-sensitive children all over the galaxy. This prompts Cal, BD-1, Cere, and Grease to find a way to retrieve the holocron and rebuild the Jedi Order. Throughout the game, you visit 5 different planets, all divided into smaller explorable areas. The game functions a bit like a Metroidvania game, in the sense that some areas are closed off until later in the game when you acquire certain abilities. So you're gonna be going back and forth between the planets a few times. As mentioned before, the game takes heavy inspiration from the Soulsborne games. This includes a checkpoint/bonfire system, respawning enemies when you rest, upgradable skills at the checkpoints, etc. As you work your way through the story, Cal will have some flashbacks to his Padawan training, which will reconnect him to the Force bit by bit. After every flashback, a new section of the skill tree will open up, allowing Cal to learn upgrades for the newly acquired ability. The lightsaber duels in this game feels amazing. It's a constant back and forth fencing match, switching between attacking and parrying, and occasionally using force abilities to stagger the enemy. The main story lasts around 12 to 15 hours, I would say. I played the game on the second hardest difficulty, only switching to the easiest when doing my cleanup after credits rolled, so this also plays a part in the length of the game. The platinum wasn't too bad either. It's similar to The Last of Us in the sense that trophies consist of fully exploring every planet, getting every collectible, and some miscellaneous combat trophies. The only annoying part was exploring every planet to 100%. On some of the planets I was only missing 5 to 10%, which meant that somewhere on the planet I was only missing a single room or alcove. When I completed the story, I had already gotten most of the combat trophies, so there wasn't too much to grind in the post-game cleanup. As much as it pains me to admit, I was actually late with this platinum, which means it technically shouldn't count to the challenge, but I'll include it in the video anyways. I got the platinum about 3 hours after the challenge ended. Getting all the collectibles and fully exploring the planets took up a lot of my time. So by the end, when I picked up the last collectible, I still had to go back and forth between multiple planets because I missed some room or alcove. This meant that I got the platinum trophy for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order at around 3 AM. The game deserves an 8 out of 10. The story was mid, the combat was amazing although sometimes infuriating, and the exploration of each planet was also a drag when going for 100%. But the planets in and of itself have a great variety, and you can clearly tell which planet you're on just by looking at the environment. The platinum trophy wasn't that hard, besides getting 100% on all planets. For this, it gets a 2 out of 10 in difficulty. And with this platinum on my profile, it concluded the challenge. Doing this challenge was a great help in motivating me to clean up a few of the games on my backlog. I felt extra compelled to play these games and actually get the platinum as fast as possible to make the most of my time during these 30 days. Knowing that my playthroughs and thoughts from each game would eventually make its way into this video felt extra rewarding. This time, I didn't feel like I was getting the platinums for me alone. This time, it was to give content to other people, however many end up watching this video. Going through this challenge/experiment also proved Daryl talks games right in some of his talking points in his video. Sitting down and making a plan for which games you want to play over a period of time helps keep you focused on completing these games. If you suffer from the same fate of a giant backlog, I can only recommend going about it by planning out which games you want to play in, say, a 30-day period. Coming out on the other side of these 30 days, I can't wait to get back into my backlog. Death Stranding was especially surprising to me, seeing as I had always strayed away from it because of the gameplay. And who knows how many other great and amazing games in my backlog I missed out on. I will definitely try and work my way through my backlog little by little, but also remembering to take breaks so I can fully take in the games instead of moving on to the next one right away. I hope you enjoyed the video. Depending on how this video goes, I might just make more videos delving deeper into a single game with the same approach as I've done here. That means doing a full review of the game for itself and also include a review of going for the platinum trophy. If this is something you want to see, then please do me a favor. Leave a like and a comment so I can get an estimate of how this video lands with you guys. Until next time.